MURPH! MURPH! Wilson!
Yeah, sorry, I'm not MURPH.
God. I can't believe you don't have a joke for Interstellar. Okay.
Do we? I know it's an iconic episode. It's an iconic movie, and there's no joke.
Come on, Tars.
Matt Damon.
Yes, that's a joke.
That's the joke. Matt Damon is a joke.
We will go into that.
Oh my gosh. We will. I'm Wilson Lai.
I'm Benjamin Yap.
I'm Eli Sands.
I'm Isadora Neves Marques.
And you're listening to Deep Cut.
On Deep Cut, we compare a director's most popular film with... Oh my God, excuse me. I'm so sorry.
It's me from the future making him sneeze.
It's Seltzer from the past.
Oh, no.
On Deep Cut, we compare a director's most popular film with a personal favorite chosen by one of us.
We also discuss a director's life and career to bring context that helps us view their movies as they may want us to.
If you're enjoying the show, please rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to help others discover the show. Better still, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or comment on our episodes directly on Spotify. If you'd like to share a message with us, feel free to join our Discord or drop us an email at hello@deepcutpod.com. We do read them and we will try to get back to you. Still my favorite phrasing in the copy here. You can also find us at deepcutpod.com to find links to our socials, our Discord, our Patreon, and much, much, much more.
Welcome to an episode where we are starting our journey with a new filmmaker, and that is a filmmaker that is a young hotshot who probably needs the leg up from Deep Cut and probably needs the exposure, Mr. Christopher Nolan.
Who's that?
Who's this man? I don't know. But for our first episode on Nolan and his 2014 film Interstellar, we are pleased to welcome onto the show filmmaker and artist Isadora Neves Marques. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dora.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Can't wait.
Isadora is a Portuguese film director, visual artist, and writer. They were the Portuguese official representation at the Portugal Pavilion at the Venice Biennale in 2022. Their films have premiered in Semaine de la Critique in Cannes. That was in 2024, the International Film Festival in Rotterdam, and TIFF, just to name a few. Their artwork has been exhibited globally in art institutions such as the Tate Modern, Gasworks, Palais de Tokyo, Liam Art Museum, and Kyoto City University of the Arts Gallery, among many others. They are also co-founders of the film producer Foi Bonita e Festa. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
That is wonderful.
Thank you. And of the poetry press Pantano Books. Dora's films lean into areas of science fiction and also deal with themes of queerness, of identity, of connection with others. Unfortunately, I force this director onto you, Dora, or I give you a few options, but very few options. And I remember you told me when I was like, oh, Nolan, you were like, I hate Nolan. And I was like, oh, maybe that actually would be interesting to have you come on as a hater.
Let's be honest, you only gave me one option.
But I also think it was because I had recently seen your film Vampires in Space, and that was a very sci-fi film about being stuck in a space station, and I thought that was very appropriate for Interstellar. So maybe let's start with your filmmaking and maybe how you can connect your own sci-fi filmmaking with that of Christopher Nolan's.
Wow, I never thought I'd hear that sentence. But I will admit, Nolan is, for all its downsides, and we can be serious about it, there is a lot of value, of course, in Nolan's writing, in Nolan's imagination. And he is a very brave director in many ways, right? And for me, there is a common passion for kind of science fiction, I mean, my approach in my very small scale comparing to Nolan is much more personal, or no, personal is not the right word, as we'll discuss in Interstellar.
Yeah.
But more mundane. I think I have much more kind of mundane approach, more kind of relational. And I don't take the genre as seriously or as dogmatically maybe as he does. But I find it really interesting at the same time because my films kind of deal with paranormal or like the strange in the day-to-day and stuff like that. So yeah.
I think I would add that where Nolan is pretty hell-bent on clarity and logical explanation for anything eerie in his films, I really enjoyed in your latest, which I believe was at Cannes, My Senses Are All I Have to Offer, really enjoyed the allowance for telepathy to go unexplained and just be sort of almost a magical realist part of the way in which these characters interact with each other.
No, absolutely. I think that is really important to me to just kind of, I would like the audience of my work to really just take it as it is and just take that jump, and I'm working on a couple of my first feature films right now. So, and they do take the same risks of kind of like, okay, let's assume this is absolutely normal. And that's what I'm interested more in, the banality of everyday life than the extraordinary, actually. But we do feed from the same kind of sources in a way.
Do you have like a kind of overarching maybe approach or like concept to how you think about the utility of science fiction, maybe as a genre, when you approach your work? Like, or it's like filter through like the thing you want to actually, like the story you want to tell or the feeling you want to evoke or whatever it is?
That's such a hard question. And I've been writing about it because, as Wilson said, I also publish quite a bit on film and art, and science fiction is something I touch on quite often. And even after writing, I still can't answer. But there is something very natural to me. At least I grew up on those kind of writings, and it's just very natural to me to just think in that way. It's not even like, I don't even see it as a tool because that will be very instrumental almost. I just see it as very natural. It comes to me and then I roll with it and say, oh yeah, let's see what if they're telepaths, and then you see where it goes. And now I'm shooting a new film on Neanderthals. But they're just a contemporary couple right now,
Yeah.
But they're Neanderthals at the same time. And it was like, yeah, why not? Let's see where that goes. And so I don't know. That's my very, very abstract answer.
I've been like kind of on a Ursula K. Le Guin kick recently, and she writes a lot about how sci-fi is about the present, which of course makes a lot of sense, right? Yeah. But she has this whole thing about how like novelists are all liars, and I was like, where's she going with this? I don't really get it. But I think she's trying to say that she's like creating kind of like a fake world, but I think it obviously comes from like something that she wants to say about the world right now, and that right now could be like when she was writing some of her early novels in the 60s. And even though they're like set in the 3000s or something on like far-flung
or fantasy, yeah.
But they speak to human experience, right? Which I think like most stories are.
For me, for example, it's not really about the future in any way that I think these things. It's more the day-to-day. And I think that the thing, and I see this in other directors and films and etc., I think you just have to be careful to not make it like a layer. We're seeing that a little bit in contemporary cinema. I'm thinking about Sinners and other kind of films. And it has to come from within, it has to be, otherwise it feels tropey. So it's a thin line, I would say.
I think that's where your approach of coming up with a what if scenario first and seeing what will happen from there makes a lot of sense, because I agree with you that in a lot of high concept cinema right now, it's very much so concept first rather than character first. And that would maybe be my major knock against Nolan. But I agree with you, and as we'll talk about in a moment, he was really instrumental in my burgeoning interest in cinema as a kid.
Yeah.
So a lot of value there and some limitations.
And I would say, like you, I think despite it all, I think he's one of the guys who really kind of made sci-fi also quite accessible in a highbrow, not in a Star Wars-y kind of thing, but like in a highbrow kind of thing. And that's valuable. I mean, that's interesting,
Yeah. So why not let's get into it and we can talk about all of our backgrounds with Nolan. Maybe I can go first. I am probably what you would consider your most like normie Nolan enjoyer. Like I've seen like all his like the Dark Knight trilogy, Oppenheimer, Interstellar, Tenet, and I appreciate them. I like pay big money to go watch it in IMAX whenever they come out.
It has to be IMAX.
Yeah.
Nolan has hundreds of my dollars.
Yeah, he does. He does. He has multiple hundreds of my dollars. Out of his films that I've seen, I think Oppenheimer was probably like top for me. And I am always interested in what he does with time. And I think we can talk about it in Interstellar today, because I feel like in this movie, he is playing a lot with cross-cutting, which he does in Inception a little earlier. But I think he is doing a really great channeling of this time-based storytelling into something that is emotionally punchy and cathartic at the same time. But we'll talk about that when we get to Interstellar.
Yeah. So I've written and spoken before, I think on the podcast, about how the summer of 2010, my family made a big move. It was just me and my brother, who, you know, was my sort of social link at that time. And that was the summer that Inception came out. And we both like really fell heels over head for that movie and sort of opened up a lot of questions for me about how a movie gets made and why different people work on it. I bought and read the screenplay several times. I wound up watching the movie several times after that. I listened to the score basically on repeat for like a year. I'm not a huge Zimmer guy anymore, but yeah, no, it really became a kind of fixation and early point of, I guess in retrospect, I would call it kind of study of how that movie operates and why it does what it does when it does. I rewatched it a few years ago and was like, yeah, this is still amazing. So that has to be top of the pile Nolan for me. And, you know, even when I don't feel he does super deep characterization or really anchors it in a deep personality of a character, he's still thrilling to watch. And I think, as Dora said, opens up a lot of possibilities for what cinema can be both on screen and in the imagination of people watching movies. Brings tremendous value to world cinema.
What do you think it is about Inception that, like, I don't know, it had grips on like teenage boy. It had like a grip on them.
It certainly did for me.
When it came out, I was like 18 and I was like, all the boys were like really into it.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm not one of the boys. I'm not like one of the boys.
I was turning on Nolan at this point in time. Because I had already...
Always a contrarian.
Yeah, because at this point in time, I was maybe like 2 years into being a budding cinephile. So it was fun to be a contrarian. Yeah, when Inception came out. Although, I mean, I do like Nolan in general, but I think I turned on him really early. I turned on Interstellar when it came out too. I didn't hate Inception, but I was also like comparing it to all the other stuff that could have been like Inception-like films that are like, to me, maybe like better or like maybe to me more imaginative. But I've always kind of held that Nolan is a good filmmaker of baseline, that he knows what he's doing. And like even Oppenheimer, like I just like can tell when he's operating on a level that's like very different from his peers, I would say, who are working on the same kind of budgets, because the kinds of movies he wants to make, they're still kind of there. And there's obviously a very Nolan-ness to all of his films.
Right.
But
yes.
I think my resistance to Nolan is more of a taste thing. And I think that's more a reflection of how I've changed over the years. And I will talk about how Interstellar has changed for me since I saw it. Because when I saw it, I didn't like it a lot. And now I watched it, I was like, you know what? I think it's good for very different, almost completely diametric reasons that I've like essentially flipped as a human being. So I found it to be interesting, and maybe that kind of time element would be interesting to Nolan as well, but I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I don't particularly like Nolan to think about him as like a deep cut director. I push back against featuring him a lot.
Sorry.
And we're doing it right now.
This is me.
I was like, well, so do we have to? Do we really have to?
It feels like a very blank check thing to do. But then I recently opened Blank Check's feed and they're covering Lynn Ramsey. So they eat our lunch, we eat theirs.
Yeah, we'll do a little switch over.
Yeah.
Take that, Griffin and David.
Well, yeah. So I guess that's where I stand with Nolan. Although I will tell you that my favorite one's Dunkirk, and no one really loves that movie. Yeah, that's a weird one. It's a weird movie. Yeah, but I like it because it's weird. It's kind of jank.
It is janky.
Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, the thing he does with it doesn't make any sense. But sure, why not? Yeah, maybe that's why I like it, because it's another contrarian pick. But like, and I think that's maybe it's because it's surprisingly odd. Yeah. Dora, what about you?
I know. For me, actually, Wilson, I agreed with you when you said that your favorite was Oppenheimer, but I was lying. Inception, for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
Inception is a really good film, actually. I mean, I really like it. I think it's a great action film, smart. I mean, the dream, going deeper into the dreams, it's really nice. And I think DiCaprio gives a good role, actually, which, and again, I'm not that keen on DiCaprio sometimes, but I think it's a really good film, actually. I rewatched it also not that long ago, and I was like, yeah, this is really fun. I think my first encounter actually with Nolan was Memento, was really the first. I was very young, and I think probably VHS, something like that, and at some friend's, I don't know, basement or whatever. And I was like, oh no, it felt just such a typical, I don't know when it is from, like 99 or something. I have no idea, but it felt very much from that time. And I felt like it was that's kind of dark, broody kind of, and I was like, no. And the guy tattoos his memories on his body. I was like, no, come on. But then I forgot about Nolan. Nolan also wasn't famous. It was his film, right? And then I think I realized who he was with Inception. That was when I was like, oh, there's this guy called Christopher Nolan. And Interstellar, for me, is this film that I told Wilson, like, I think I didn't like it. I went to I'm not sure what I feel about it, but I've watched it too many times. So it's really weird because for a film that I shouldn't like, I've watched too many times. But maybe it's like there is something there. I think there is something deeply bold and interesting and even moving, I would say, in love is the universal law and everything else. I don't know. I think there is something there. And so I'm actually quite happy that we can discuss it.
Yeah, let's definitely dive deeper and dig deeper into this. But before we do this, I'm going to do a quick director background with hopefully information that will sort of help guide our conversation and help, contextualize this film within Nolan's filmography as well. So Christopher Nolan was born in 1970, and I think an important part about his background is that he has a British father and an American mother. So he's a dual citizen. So he does sort of claim both British filmmaking, but also maybe with Hollywood money. I think that's how I sort of perceive his kind of filmmaking, is that he is operating outside of the Hollywood machine, but is still a Hollywood blockbuster filmmaker because he's sort of catering towards those audiences and those studios. He began making films at 7 using his father's Super 8 camera. He was often creating action figure animations inspired by Star Wars. And he studied English literature at UCL in London, specifically to access its film facilities, a choice that informed his focus on narrative structure. And then he made his debut feature in 1998, which was Following. He self-funded this and shot it over weekends, over a year, with friends to keep his day job, which is wild to sort of compare to where he is now. He was truly guerrilla, small budget filmmaking when he started. He did his first non-linear storytelling breakthrough with Memento, which came out in 2000. So you're right, Dora, it was that sort of brooding late 90s, early 2000s. And then that is sort of when he started getting traction and getting higher and higher budget films. I guess he's most notably known for directing the Dark Knight trilogy and Inception. And Interstellar sort of occurs, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it occurs right after the Dark Knight trilogy. So this is what Nolan's follow-up to arguably the biggest and most influential blockbuster movies of all time, of superhero movies of all time. He has quite a few people that he continues to work with over and over again, including his wife, Emma Thomas, who has produced all of his feature films. And they have like a tight unit at their production company, Syncope. He also works with Wally Pfister, usually as a cinematographer, and has been using a lot of IMAX cameras, so pioneering the use of the IMAX film format, which I think you can also speak to, Dora, as you have sort of adhered to the format of shooting in 16 millimeters throughout your shorts, and I think probably your feature, maybe. I'm just taking a guess. But adhering to a form, realizing that that form is the best way to tell your story. And Nolan is one of the few directors in the world that we really see as having final cut privilege with a studio, which allows him to have complete say over how his films get delivered to his audience members, which allows for big swings like an Oppenheimer, which really worked in the box office when it came out 2 years ago. I think, that is it for our Nolan director background. And we can jump into today's feature film, which is Interstellar. So set in the near future, a widowed former NASA pilot named Joseph Cooper is led to a hidden NASA facility where he gets brought on to a mission to use a wormhole to transport and colonize a habitable planet with embryos to ensure that humanity survives. That is sort of like the main plot, but a lot else goes on if you haven't seen Interstellar. I hope if you're listening to this episode, you have seen Interstellar. This is probably like the most popular film that we've covered on the podcast, like ever. So
Parasite?
Oh, maybe Parasite.
I think this beats Parasite.
Whoa.
Yeah, come on.
I think this beats Parasite in terms of popularity.
Yes.
Yeah. But for Interstellar, I would say that I really love Interstellar. Like, I think every time I've seen Interstellar, it gets better and better in my mind. I think there is a richness to the emotional text of this movie that really works on rewatches and knowing what happens and what this sort of relationship between Cooper and MUUUURPH is his daughter, and how they're connected through time. I think that concept just really works for me. And I also think Nolan's scene creation and the way that he's able to emotionally crescendo on different sequences in this film and them being really memorable is such a standout for me as well. And it looks gorgeous. It sounds really, really good. The performances are, I don't know, debatable across the board. Like, I feel like there are good performances and there are poor performances, and we can talk about them. But I think it's impressive to see the cast that he got together and this sort of, big time and space spanning story about a father and a daughter.
I was going to say that, like, it does look great. I saw it when it premiered in New York in the IMAX 70 millimeter version. It was astonishing. It was like amazing visually. I think I've only seen it since on my computer or at home, but it was like impressive. Absolutely beautiful. I was going to say also, if I can, about what you were saying about the position of Nolan. So not completely Interstellar, but I think it's interesting what you said, because he does the thing that he's like a British director, but using Hollywood's, but not being totally Hollywood bound. Hearing you speak, it's like he's the main character in what you see a lot happening today. Because I find like as Hollywood is becoming more and more drained of vitality in a way, you have all of these directors that are not in Hollywood, but they tap into it somehow. And Nolan's kind of like, in a way, like you're saying, the one who has the best, like, established his position as like, to be respected in that, but not be dependent on Hollywood. That's pretty impressive. And it shows other ways of working.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we've been circling around for our last couple of series, other ways of producing movies outside of Hollywood. This came up with Hong Sang-soo for sure. And I'm almost interested in comparing Christopher Nolan to Hong Sang-soo.
Yeah,
like,
what?
as folks who insistently make their own thing at their own scale and are connected to resources that support them. For Nolan, that's massive budgets through Hollywood. But for Hong, that's the support of the International Film Festival circuit. I think that's a necessary part of his production, is that it will be exhibited at scale. I think part of the value that you're identifying, Dora, is Nolan's insistence on originality and imagination and the control that he has, along with his wife, over the ultimate film. That sort of flag planted in the ground, again, I'm glad that he's a model of movies right now. It's sort of like the top of the mountain, if anyone has to be at the top of the mountain.
I mean, there's an argument that he's sort of an independent filmmaker. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? Like, it's like, it's like an independent project, but like Hollywood wants to fund it because they can make money.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's incredible that he pulled that off. It's like astonishing.
Yeah. Like, I just think about his trajectory. It's like after Insomnia, he makes Batman Begins, and that juices his entire career.
It does.
And then after Dark Knight Rises, like he makes this like trilogy. Probably one of the most successful superhero trilogies. And then he uses the goodwill he has with the fans of the superhero trilogy and like I guess like a larger DC fan base and a larger mainstream fan base to follow him wherever he goes. And he did not go anywhere near anything like The Dark Knight ever again. He just started doing all this other stuff. And people kept following him despite him changing lanes a lot. So there is a feeling like the films are not constructed by committee, which a studio film feels more like, which is why I say he's a kind of like an independent filmmaker. And I think that means that he kind of works on his own terms. I would say even more so than even Scorsese, because sometimes I feel like Scorsese gets eaten up by the machine a little bit, because I think Scorsese needs to make more of an argument for his films than Nolan does for some reason.
There must be something in the audience or cinema audiences today that they do attach themselves to the scale and the ambition of a Nolan project, you know? And that's pretty interesting because he's a sci-fi director mostly, you know, except for a couple of films. He is a brainy sci-fi guy and he sustained his whole career on that almost. And that's really very interesting in terms of thinking about what the audiences are willing to accept and follow. And also choosing to do a superhero movie at the stage he was. It could be a deal breaker. Also, it could go wrong. You know, it could be like, I'm doing a Batman movie. I don't know. It can go in different directions. And he pulled it off. And that's, wow, he pulled it off.
I mean, probably the best decision he makes in his entire career is doing that Batman movie. Because then he first of all made a shit ton of money, and then after that he could do whatever he wanted, right? And arguably he wanted to make those Batman movies, I guess. And they're also pretty weird movies for the superhero universe. They're weird.
He very purposefully does Heat as the Dark Knight.
Yeah. And that's something to commend as well. Should we talk about Interstellar?
Yeah, let's have your general reactions. I think I already talked about how I feel generally about the movie. So any of you guys...
So the thing I didn't like about the movie is the thing I like about the movie now, which is odd. And it speaks to being maybe like a young man becoming not a young man anymore when I was younger. And I think because I was the target audience of this, which is like brainy sci-fi. So then you're looking for that brainy sci-fi thing, the logic and like the world building and to like make sense of science fiction. And like at the point I was watching stuff like Primer, which is like a very nerdy sci-fi movie that like really tries to make its time travel work. So there's this idea that like science fiction is supposed to be about, I guess you could say, world building. And a lot of the times the world building comes from like building a cohesive universe. And so the thing I kind of railed against with this movie was like Anne Hathaway's whole thing about the love thing, and then how like he kind of solves this problem with the power of love. And I was like, this is a weird shortcut. But now I think that is the best part of the movie. And like the only part of the movie I really give a shit about, because the rest of it is actually not that interesting. And maybe it's because we're just like inundated with sci-fi in general, but like it's just like so much more interesting and also philosophical to think about that monologue from Grant's character, where she, as a scientist, presents an idea that sounds very so-called unscientific, but actually, to me now, today, like, is more interesting and makes more sense. And I do think the movie as a whole is good, but then I think it's interesting that actually this movie, even though it looks the most kind of like hard sci-fi, is maybe his least hard sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Because it's actually standing on something that is like so woo-woo that you do not realize compared to everything else in his filmography. Everything else is like kind of grimdark and gritty and makes sense, like Batman even. But then this one is like, we're doing sci-fi, but then the answer is love and the inexplicable power of it. And I was like, wait a minute, this is like actually very unlike Nolan. So I think the film ends up for me being in a weird halfway place because it's also doing the, oh, this is how wormholes work and whatever, and then also love. And so it's almost like, I think once he hit that point, I wanted him to commit to it harder to like show me what that means. You know what I mean? Like, how can Nolan be less like Nolan? But I think he's still like kind of one foot in each door. Because I think about like, say like 2001, right? 2001, also a brainy sci-fi movie. And then it ends on an insane montage that like is unexplainable and no one knows what he's trying to do here. Right. Yeah. And then we got Big Space Baby. And like, there's no point to it. It's just like, here's some weird idea. Let's go. And Nolan doesn't really get there. Like, I mean, he has a cool Tesseract sequence, but that's still very sensible in his world building. Like, he kind of takes love and then he starts to explain it.
He's Nolan after all.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, man. And
he has to.
Yeah. Like, and I think now I'm just like, wow, I think it might be his like closest to his most spiritual movie. And I wish it was more spiritual. I'm also in the spiritual mode right now of being. So then now I'm like, yeah, I'm into this right now. So I'm just like, oh, I want this from you, Nolan. Maybe the Odyssey will be this. It's possible.
I don't know.
But it's looking like the same thing I just described. Taking something mystical and powerful and making it gritty and grimdark.
Just go. It's like he's incapable of being campy, and that sometimes for me is a bit like, come on, the world is all gray.
I mean, this is the argument I make about like a lot of like masculine filmmakers, which is like masculine camp.
Yeah,
where it's like the inverse of camp is camp again.
Inverse.
Yeah, it's like we can't make it not masculine, so I'm gonna index even harder on masculine until it's like, wait a minute, this is like too manly until it's like a bit funny.
But that is something, I think that is something that we should talk about at some point also, this kind of element of Nolan's masculinity and intelligence. I think Nolan is an extremely intelligent writer, and his brother as a scriptwriter. I mean, they're very complex films to edit and to put together. But sometimes it's like you were saying, they kind of tie every knot and everything becomes very explained and it's very smart movie making. But it feels kind of like shallow also at the same time. This is really weird ambivalence where it's smart, but also to me sometimes feels like cheap philosophy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because when you tie all the knots, then when you walk away from the movie, there's nothing else to tie. Yeah, you're done. You're like, you kind of walk out and you're like, it's done.
Yeah, but if I can, I feel the same as you, Ben. Like when I first saw it, I was like, I didn't dislike the love thing. I was just very confused because of the sparks being so smart and the twists and turns. I was like, I don't know. I was more like, wow, black hole. I love that. The wave, planet, ocean. I mean, that was spectacular and so intelligent. But nowadays also, like, what I most love about Interstellar is that kind of love is the universal law. I'm a sucker for that. I'm like, yes, let's just indulge in that. Because it is like, you have to kind of let go of a lot of defenses to accept that. And I think that's really powerful because we tend to be like, oh, that's corny or that's tacky and it's like, why? Why is it tacky? Like, what's holding you up from accepting something so simple as a daughter-father bond, you know? So I really, really actually, like you, nowadays is what I think holds the film together. And sometimes rewatching it now also was a lot of exposition about like the science, which I like it because I'm a nerd for that, but it kind of drags it down sometimes a little bit, or lets some of the other characters could have been more developed if he allowed for some space for them to breathe. But I love the gravity thing. I mean, I have a lot of stuff to say about the film, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Eli, how about you?
I have a very similar experience to what both Ben and Dora are describing, where this came out this summer. I had graduated from high school. I already probably knew I was interested in maybe pursuing film studies or making or whatever. And I was primed, I think, to be derisive towards the love stuff. I was at the sort of right age and developmental phase, and maybe was more in a place that Ben was when he saw Inception, where I didn't buy the love as a high concept Nolan-y thing. And this time around, I watched it on my laptop in my bed, and I felt a lot more open to it. And I think, Dora, that phrase, the defense is down, applies. But I think it's also that I've hopefully grown up a bit and am more open to maybe where I saw love as a convenience, or like a plot convenience or a contrivance. And the whole like future humans made this black hole tesseract thing as a convenience in the plot. This time around, I think this is Nolan's way of doing that ending of 2001 thing of, rather than using film form to convey that which is beyond our understanding and experience, he's using concept and dialogue and set design through the tesseract to convey what's beyond our experience. And I felt more open to that this time around. I actually don't have a huge problem with the performances. I think the main weakness of the movie is Earth, that every time he cuts back to the field burning, I'm like, no. Like, bring me back to the ice planet where Dr. Mann is freaking out, is crashing out.
You gotta let him cross-cut across space-time, man. Or else Nolan will die.
I couldn't help but think, how much more compelling would this be unbroken? I think the advantage of cross-cutting is it resets your brain and leaves you waiting for an answer. But I already find the sequence so stimulating and engaging and like, show me what happens next, that I guess it's not fair to question his formal choice there.
I question it, actually. I mean, like, let's talk about editing, because like I found the editing to be good. And because the last Nolan film I saw was Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer has a very complex editing structure, right? And then when he started cross-cutting, I was like, oh, this is starting to remind me of Oppenheimer, but like a low level. And I haven't seen a Nolan film in a long time. But that cross-cutting could be much more interesting, because I found it a bit distracting, because I knew that these things were not happening at the same time. They didn't make sense together. And so I found it to be a weird choice to cross-cut the Jessica Chastain in her room and this guy on the boat.
This is at the climax of the movie.
It doesn't make sense, but
it's very strange, yeah.
Arguably, the more interesting choice would be to cross-cut MURPH going through those 70 years versus him going through 5 minutes, which is what he does in Dunkirk. Because that would actually make more sense if we're cutting across space-time. And that would make more sense to me from a very theoretical standpoint, right?
So you would see her grow up.
Yeah, because that's literally what's happening. But then, of course, that takes you away from the impact of the time passing, right? Which is what he wants, which is the emotional impact. But from a maybe like theoretical level, that makes more sense to me. But yeah, emotional impact is more important to Nolan, technically.
Instead of cutting across space-time, he's cutting motivated by love.
True.
And when their emotions are the highest and their lives are at most in jeopardy.
But it's true, like this scene that I agree, like it threw me off a little bit this time around in terms of editing, what you're saying at the end of the Tesseract scene, and he's doing the Morse code with the books. But you're seeing her as an adult while in time it's like she's a child when that's happening. So there's this really confusing editing of he's not facing the right time, supposedly, right? It's kind of, but it makes sense. It's all about the messiness of time. So why not, I guess.
I do find it's a bit of a cheat, the cross-cutting, to juice the anxiety of the film. And I was like, I don't need this right now. Like, I don't think you need to do this movie. And I think that maybe is like kind of Nolan betraying the fact that he knows he's maybe editing for a more mainstream audience and he needs to keep them in their seats. So I don't know. I feel that from that kind of choice.
But seeing how he sort of operates later on in his filmography, I don't think it was like, I think he has a desire to do this kind of storytelling, to use multiple timelines and sort of sync them up emotionally and cut between them to sort of multiply the emotional effect to the viewers. Whether it works emotionally for the viewers or not, it's definitely something that Nolan is trying to do, and I would say probably perfects later on. I think he also perfects it in Inception when they're doing the whole sequence moving between levels of the dream mind. And I'm okay with it, even as slow and repetitive the stuff on Earth is. I think emotionally it still works for me.
Mm.
I have a theory that I'm constructing in my brain right now. I think that Inception, Interstellar, and Oppenheimer are my three favorite of his to date, if not his best to date. And they're all about a main character who is compelled to go do something that takes him to a new place to do a new task, and which in the process estranges him from his wife in the case of Inception, his children in the case of Interstellar, really the rest of the world and society at large in the case of Oppenheimer. I think those are also his best movies because those are things that are very personal to Nolan's experience. They're juiced by his own feelings of guilt as a husband, as a father, as a person, and, a creator. He's marshaled massive amounts of money. And to do what? Not to create an atomic bomb, but to play with toys and be away from his wife and his children and scientific progress or the sake of what is good. It also then makes sense that he is deploying cross-cutting in those movies about him being estranged from the things that he wants to be connected to at a deep emotional level. Because cross-cutting is literally highlighting the distance in space and time between two things. Between a man and his wife, between a man and his children, between a man and his fellow people, and also in Oppenheimer, between a man and himself. Oppenheimer is about different phases in Oppenheimer's life juxtaposed against each other. It's sort of like a question of how much Oppenheimer actually changes or stays the same as he is creating this evil thing. I guess what I'm driving at here is that Interstellar, I think, worked more for me this time because I felt more of his personal touch, both in the form and in the construction of the movie.
Mm. I don't know if it's editing, if it's also it is script writing, but I really like script writing and plotting. I like heavy plotting. And to me, I actually really enjoyed this time around the first half an hour of the film, like on Earth.
Same.
I almost felt like, I want to stay here a little bit longer. There was something there between the children and it was very grounded, reminded me a lot of good Spielberg's in the same genre, right?
Totally.
It's kind of like this broken family in a way because of the mother that's passed away. And then it cuts really well. I really love the cut between him leaving the house in his truck and the camera is attached to the car. And you start listening to the countdown and then you cut to space. It's such an emotionally charged cut. I was like, wow, this is super good. And it just thrusts the film forward like immensely in that moment. It's just really, really well done. Towards the end, I don't know how you feel, but to me, there's too many climaxes. It starts to get a little bit too much, too long with the Matt Damon climax and then the going into the black hole climax. I start to get a little bit exhausted at some point, especially with the Matt Damon sequence, which we can talk about later. But to me, that's how I feel with like the duration of the film and the kind of, the moments you need to kickstart the film or not. You need to know when the audience is falling asleep or not. You risk you need to keep going to space. Now it's time to go. Half an hour of the film went by. But I really like that first half. I don't know how you guys felt about that.
Yeah, I think it's great, solid filmmaking in the first half hour. I really think the world building is very good. I was still confused a little bit about the documentary footage, but I think it fits in much better this time, especially when you see it at the end at the museum. Like it really ties together the film as a circle at the end. And you sort of think about how far you've come from that initial, like just being boots on the ground in the Dust Bowl and them dealing with day-to-day stuff. And I wish there was just a little bit more there. Like we had more time, like you said, Dora, with Cooper and MUUUURPH and Cooper and Timothée Chalamet.
It was great. It was actually great.
I forgot he was in
And
this.
John Lithgow's great too.
Oh yeah, always.
Yeah. And just building that relationship out a little bit more before he shot off to space. But that moment where he leaves is just one sequence in my head that has stuck with me. There's definitely distinct parts to the movie, which is great because it's for us to talk about because we can sort of divide the movie up into sections. And I think, the progression starting from this it's just a great launching pad. We can debate whether or not it is too long. Maybe it's like one too many planets in there, maybe that they visit.
It's fun. It's also kind of fun. It's like the Odyssey.
No, it feels like you're playing an open world game. You know what I mean?
It's playing a video game.
It's like, okay, we go here, solve the problem, go here, solve the problem. It's very like video game filmmaking.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really like that the first half an hour is very Spielberg also. The mood, like this paranormal thing that without reason, they go and find this base, NASA base in the middle of nowhere. There's no explanation, but they roll with it. It was very much Encounters of the Third Kind style, like the images of the mountain and whatever. And I was like, oh, wait, the first half an hour, this is a ghost film. This is not just, sci-fi. It's a ghost film because it's the ghost in the library. And I was like, oh, I'd never seen the first part of the film under that lens. And I really liked it. I was like, oh, wow, interesting. There's a sub-genre here.
Yeah.
I did find too, like that first act, I guess, is so fast. Because it really just hits you with all the most important exposition to make sense of when we come back to it. That I think, like you said, Wilson, it just needs more time to breathe because I think that Nolan is a very economical filmmaker, but sometimes I think he needs less economy. And I think there's like too much economy. Because I was like, wow, in the first 5 minutes, she's talking about the books. I was like, wow, like we're at the ghost already. Because the only thing I remember from the movie was the book thing. And I was like, wow, immediately, not wasting time. The most important motif in the film, the room. I was like, oh.
But that's why he's a 4-quadrant filmmaker. He's not a filmmaker for stupid people, honestly. Like, I feel like people are like, oh, I'm so smart, I understand Nolan movies. No. They're for stupid people. Like, they're for general public. Sorry.
No, they're not for stupid people. They're for making everyone feel smart.
Did you just go
regardless of what you are, they are for everyone to feel that they are smart.
That took such a turn. That took such an abrupt turn. If you like Nolan, you're an idiot.
It is very like beat you over the head, but doesn't feel like beating you over the head with it's plotting.
Yeah.
No, but I think he's good at kind of making it work. And I love the documentary stuff. I think that's some of the best choices he makes in the movie because like it makes it feel so real. It's a weird choice for a 4-quadrant filmmaker, a very weird choice.
Yeah.
And he keeps editing it back into the film. Like he's like again.
Like I love what Nolan does. The weird choice.
I know it might make more sense to just open the film with a couple of interviews, and then you don't understand, but it's there with you as an audience, and then you move on and then you can, but he keeps on editing it back like 15, 20 minutes in and you're still like, oh, here's another interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He should have kept on coming back to it like during the Mann and the cornfield fire, just like cut to an old person being like, the Dust Bowl got my spoons dirty.
So he actually watched a 2012 documentary called The Dust Bowl from director Ken Burns, like famous documentary director Ken Burns. So he asked Ken Burns if he could use this real footage. And I think that is what some of the featured interviews are in Interstellar, is real documentary footage. And it colors this film in like this real world anxiety and real world pressure that is a very economical, like Ben said, economical way of world building for Nolan.
Can I just say, like, I think, again, like Nolan and his brother are very good script writers in the complexity of their scripts. It's not easy to do what they do at all. Even writing, not even the film itself editing, but just the writing a feature of that complexity is not easy. But then at the same time, there are these moments where it's like, oh, okay, you just want us to believe. Like when he drives into the NASA base, no one cares. How did you find us? Oh, you're here. We don't have a pilot. Do you want to be the pilot? Like, it's like completely unbelievable. It doesn't make any sense.
And similarly, how does him tapping the books on the shelf turn into the watch dial turning even when it's away from the shelf?
He's pushing on space-time to flick the second hand?
So the second hand keeps on moving forever because he's sort of like controlling the gravity of the watch forever. So it will forever be repeating that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
Because it's outside of time and space. He's been there for like 20, 30 years just doing some...
Yeah, it will just keep on moving forever.
Okay.
It's the power of love, dude.
Yeah, just buy it. Just buy it. Yes, and...
Also, the NASA like introduction, my favorite part. And I was watching my buddy. I was like, and then they're like in that meeting room, and he's like, "Let me walk over to this other part." Then the back of it opens. Is like the spaceship is right there in the back of the meeting room. I was like,
economical.
What?
No way.
What happens when it takes off? The meeting room's gone.
And it was just like 6 hours away from their home, you know? It's like 6 hours away from the cornfields.
It's like, how well hidden is this secret? Like, how did you hide this whole building? It makes no sense.
It's underground.
It's underground. Is the ship also underground? It's tall. Like, it doesn't make sense. Never mind. Anyway,
I also find it ironic and bleak that there's so much talk in this movie about how, boy, good thing we solved world peace before all this, and like there are no more guns and bullets. And we're recording this on the day when the United States and Israel have attacked Iran. So, whoops. Oh, that reminds me, actually.
World War III reminds you.
The biggest thing that bothered me about Interstellar on my first watch was that I felt and continue to feel very strongly about the urgency of climate change. And I felt that Nolan, by depicting a future where we sort of conveniently overcome any problems of climate change by leaving the Earth, that was a morally irresponsible solution for the movie. And that by showing that solution so easily in this massive spectacle, widely seen film, that it would create complacency and the feeling that we'll solve this at the 11th hour, like we always do, because in our movies, they solve it at the 11th hour.
And it's very narrow. I mean, I was thinking like, it's not even like with all of these films where like the world is narrowed down to America. But here it's even worse. It's not even America. It's like Kansas or whatever else. It's like the time thing. It reminds me a lot of also, I was thinking of Denis Villeneuve's Arrival, the Chiang's adaptation.
Yeah.
And at least where it also happens in the middle of nowhere, this kind of this landscape, I don't know. But at least there's a sense of world. There's like, I remember like China at some point is part of the plot or whatever. It's not very well done, but here it's really like, it doesn't even care. It's like, no, this is just like Ohio. Yeah. And that's all you're going to get. And there's not even like an attempt to be like, well, you have dust bowls in Middle America, but what about what's happening in like Brazil or like, I mean, maybe that will be, I understand like, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's not important for the film, but it's just, there's something a bit claustrophobic there.
I mean, you mentioned the 3 films of his that you like, Eli, which is this, Oppenheimer, and Inception, which are all, what can the great man achieve on his own, basically, right? They're just these movies about how like great men can just like do everything and save the world basically on their own. There's a team and everything, but if you look at the way these films are kind of scripted, it's very much lone wolf against the world. And like, they hire him because he's the only man that can do it, and then he will do it all. And I think I realized watching this that like the problem I have from a larger macro standpoint is that it's a movie with actually very low stakes because he doesn't lose anything, really. If you think about everything in this movie, plan A, plan B, both succeed, which doesn't make sense. Usually one plan fails, both succeed. Hiccups as like the years and everything, but both succeed. He gets to see his daughter again. He saves the world. Like, he gets to do everything. There's nothing here that falls apart, right? He's just a little sad, but like, he doesn't lose anything.
Which again also reminds me of another film that is very underrated in my opinion, which is Ad Astra with, with DiCaprio, oh God, help me.
James Craig?
Yes. And also it's about a father-son relationship, a toxic, whatever, malfunctioning. And he loses a lot. And it's all about depression. And, I think it's a very underrated film, actually.
Agreed.
Visually very good. And you're right, actually. I didn't think about the stakes aren't that high at the end. They feel like they're high, but the character is not really moting that.
Because he needs to sacrifice something. Like, for example, like I knew it wasn't going to happen, but when he was doing the ticking in the Tazerac, I was like, wow, what would be really interesting is like, if he had to do this ticking for the rest of his existence.
Yeah.
That would be a
so
fucking
cool.
Incredible sacrifice and like thing that he has to do that like it's not just about being a great man, it's a great man that has to basically just suffer for the rest of his life, you know what I mean, to save the world.
But unfortunately not cinematic.
He gets to go home, see his daughter, and then also maybe go fuck Anne Hathaway. Like what the fuck? Like what the hell?
Is that what he's doing? I don't think
yes
Yeah,
with the consent of his daughter. It's not just like go
yeah, go fuck Anne Hathaway. I was like, oh, okay. Like, what?
Who, by the way, they have no chemistry, McConaughey and Hathaway.
I like her, though. I think she's great.
She's good in this.
She's great.
I think she's really great pretty much always.
In general.
Yeah,
me too.
Jessica cut looks amazing on her.
Oh, I know. The haircut. I was like, wow. Love it. And she does evolve. She's very unlikable. Up to the moment where she understands she's been lied by her father, she's super selfish and cold, and the whole water world scene kind of serves to highlight how spoiled and whatever she is. And still, it's impressive that by the end of the film, you kind of feel for her. I think you start kind of liking her. While he is always the same, Matthew McConaughey is like super flat as a character.
Yeah, I mean, the masculinity of it kind of comes in here. And I think Nola maybe like shows a little self-awareness because she's like, right? She's the one that says this corny thing about love. And then he's like, no, fuck that. But then it was actually right at the end of the day. Yeah. But then also in that scene, I was like, this makes no sense. Like they say no to her and then they go do stuff that makes no sense either. And then the only reason they do any of these other things is because he loves his daughter. So then he's like, just being an idiot. He's just like, I don't care about who you love, but I care about who I love. And I'm a man, so let's go do me, But the thing is, we can, as an audience, see it as selfish, but I don't think the film presents it as such. So it just feels annoying.
I don't think so. I would say it's sort of like about different levels of selfishness, right? Like I would say Matt Damon's character and his whole placement in this film is to show like this extreme kind of selflessness. Oh no, selfishness, not selflessness.
And his name is Dr. Mann. Turns out Mann is selfish. There's a point when McConaughey, he gets saved from the ice planet by Anne Hathaway, and he crawls onto the spaceship and says, "Man lied." And I was like, there it is. There it is.
Man did lie. Let's talk about this. And I was like, there was a very strategic covering, like blocking moment where one of the people in NASA was talking about Dr. Mann. Marco Kine was talking about Matt Damon's character and strategically was covering a portrait of him on the wall. And I was like,
I noticed, yes.
Yeah, Matt Damon jump scare for later. Interesting also because The Martian exists and Matt Damon in space is like, there's other versions of Matt Damon in space. I don't know how I feel. I think this was the performance that I was like,
Yeah. Oh, it's tough. If we're going at it, I mean, to me, that's the weakest moment of the film. I think the whole ice planet thing, to me, doesn't work. It's too in your face. The whole thing with Matt Damon being, I am the one, I have to complete the mission. Like, I understand the complete mental breakdown of that person. I get it. But it's too much. I find it too much. Like killing all of them, leaving, it's just like, and then it's Matt Damon. So it's kind of.
I guess there was a version of it without needing him to go full like asshole. Him actually getting them to land there is already wasting a lot of resources, right? That's already enough to be like, fuck this guy. But he's just like, I'm gonna kill people too. And it's like, bro, what?
Like, I haven't seen people in forever and I'm gonna kill them.
Yeah.
Goodwill docking.
Also, there's like just too many parts of that like strain your suspension of disbelief, even though it's a sci-fi movie, because like I look at the planet, I'm like, the planet's fucked, guys. Like, why are you trusting him? That's one thing. It's like, it's great as shit, guys. And then when he docks and fails, I was just like, why did he just do it again? Like, I don't really get that part as well. He just seemed too stupid, conveniently just too stupid for the plot.
Yeah, to be also one of the greatest men in our mission. Yeah,
it didn't really make sense. So I do see that.
Yeah, it kind of serves, you see, like the plot device that you need the ship to be destroyed or something so that Matthew McConaughey goes into the black hole. You know, it feels a little bit like we need to do A so that B and C happens. And it just feels like, couldn't they go into the black hole regardless? I don't know. There's something there that doesn't work for me.
Dora, I was wondering, like, you are working on writing your narrative feature debut right now. Like, what sort of, I guess, screenplay lessons or tips that you're, like, taking from watching this film, which you have sort of applauded in its screenplay? And, like, what are you sort of taking when you're thinking about your own film, as different as it may be?
I really appreciate the script writing of several of Nolan's films. I think for me, I love writing and I love script writing. It's one of my favorite parts of directing. And the challenge you'll find in a film, they're already in the script, you know, usually. Of course, in editing and everything else, the film changes, but the script already can tell you a lot what's going to happen, I find. I think the question of what I was saying of rhythm and trying to feel the audience as they're watching the film, you know, this kind of boring moments so that you can then go to a dramatic moment, and the pacing. Interstellar, for me, has several pacing issues, but for me, it's very enriching to see the film. You know, I don't see it as like bad. I'm just like, I learned from it. It's not like one of those films where you're like dramatically like, oh, this is really not working. It's just like, if they could have done this and this, I think the pacing would have been much more graceful. And to me, that's one of the takeaways. But then again, also the ambition and like you were saying, the audience isn't stupid or whatever you were saying.
He was saying the audience was stupid.
It's stupid.
So you were calling everyone an idiot.
And if you like this movie, you're an idiot. No, but to me, it's like, no, actually believing that the audience is intelligent and they can connect the things, you know. There's such a tendency to dumb down stuff and exposition these days. It's just like, please, like the audience isn't dumb, you know.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend. He was saying that like there are like parts of the film where you can tell that someone's explaining something for us. Like when he does the paper wormhole thing. This is not the first time you explain wormholes to your pilot, guys. That makes no sense.
I've read A Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah.
You don't need to explain this to me.
I think that partially that kind of scene is like that it tickles Nolan's brain of like, oh, I don't know if people haven't heard about this thing. I need to explain it to them because I'm smart. But the thing is, I can tell you that like, I'm sure there's somebody out there that's the first time they hear that. And to them, it's a very interesting and very inviting idea because you can just pick up a piece of paper and do it as well. And then I explain the film to people and like explain why you like the film. And so like, it works, even though we as like people who have seen a lot of films find it corny or like, not necessary, but like there's, I think, quite powerful marketing in it as well, in a way. You know, it's like very useful because like it makes you feel smart and you want to tell people about this new thing you learned. Like if I've never seen a black hole entertainment before, it's interesting, you know? And I think like him and like his producer partner, like they're very smart about like how to package this whole thing and like what to include to like kind of tickle parts of your brain that make you want to talk about it. I mean, we're talking about it, so.
Like you're saying, the biggest marketing is a black hole. You know, that's the biggest marketing of the film because it's like so amazing and so well shot and shot in a very material way. I think that's impressive that it films space and in the same way as it shoots on Earth. And I think that's really interesting, right? The camera angles, that the camera is attached to the car, but also to the spaceship. There's this kind of, again, also, Wilson, what you were asking about, what do I learn from this film for myself? This kind of mirrorings that you can use in a film, like so they ground you in the directing choices, the cinematography. It's very well thought out. It's not like everything is like there for a purpose in a way. That's really impressive.
That makes me think of My Senses Are All I Have to Offer, where the fantastical element of telepathy is grounded in the very recognizable early relationship introduces one partner to the other's parents. Nolan is really good at taking something strange and anchoring it in a recognizable, if sometimes cliched, relational dynamic. As I'm saying that, I'm also realizing that like the major exception to this is Tenet, where it's like no one there is a person.
Absolutely.
But it still slaps.
It slaps. They're all aliens.
One of the best fight scenes, yeah.
Really good. Really, really good.
Tenet's a film in which he explains a lot, but nobody understands it. And it's okay as well.
No. And I must say, like, the Ocean Planet, I mean, I remember when I first saw it was also like a highlight. It's like visually like stunning. And so it's really well done. And again, using the gravitational pull of the black hole science in a really visually smart way. It's strange that that guy that can't make it inside the space.
He sort of waits for the wave, and
it was clear like we need to kill this character. So those are the bad plot points. Like so much of this film also, it's so smart, but also at the same time there's moments like, guys, come on. Like, this is just because you need to kill this character. It doesn't make any sense. So, and that to me kind of brings the film down. Like the NASA scene, the base. It's just a bit like, more than the love. You know, that's to me that those are the scenes that I'm like,
agreed.
Come on.
Agreed. You know, I want to return to what we were saying about the ending of the film being very forgiving to Cooper, and tie it in with the thread we've sort of been following of masculinity. I'm thinking about the ending passages of Interstellar in contrast with those of Oppenheimer, because where Interstellar lets Cooper have it all and do it all and be the great man without huge consequence, Oppenheimer does point out that even though history sort of thinks of Oppenheimer as a great man, it allows for a sort of stomach-churning ending of, yeah, but look what kind of era he's opened up in modern warfare. And the literal last shot, Oppenheimer spoiler, is nuclear weaponry flying through the sky. So I think there's an interesting development where he gets a little bit more complex as he gets older and allows for an unhappy resolution in Oppenheimer. I don't think he's going to allow for the same unhappiness at the end of the Odyssey because, you know, it's spoilers for a millennia-old book, but, you know, Odysseus winds up reclaiming his wife and son and his kingdom at the cost of his men, but nonetheless. So I guess I'm wondering how much Nolan is going to allow for a questioning of this great man idea in the Odyssey. And my gut tells me not very much.
Yeah, talking about the masculinity of Nolan's films, but also just what you were just saying now. I think back also to DiCaprio's character in Inception, which is much more of a man that's in turmoil and in deep pain. Like, is it like addicted in a way? I don't remember the plot very well right now, but there's this sense of, I remember there's almost a sense of addiction, and he's very raw, although he has that veneer of like a professional, like, and the men in these films that you're mentioning, Interstellar, Oppenheimer, and now I'm pretty sure Odyssey, like you're saying, they more and more feel like they're detached from their feelings. There's a sort of cognitive dissonance, while at least DiCaprio is in touch with his pain or is searching. I think Inception is so much like a psychoanalytical film in the sense that it's a man in search of accepting his pain.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like he needs to go literally in therapy. He's going deeper and deeper into his psyche to accept that he's in pain and stop being such a man, you know, to demasculinize in a way, because he has to accept that his wife died because of him. It's very much like Solaris, you know. Solaris also, that he's having these visions of his wife that committed suicide because it was a neglectful husband. And especially in not the Tarkovsky Solaris, but in the Soderbergh one, which I actually really like. I think it's also I think it takes a completely different angle to Solaris. It's much more like couples dynamic in a way. But anyway, like you're saying, the Cooper in Interstellar is somewhere in between for me, because he's clearly an emotional guy, a cowboy, morally on the right. Morally on the right. But that's like, he has a moral compass also, you know what I mean? So I'm saying this in both ways. But he's not stoic. Like, I'm sure the Odyssey will be, and definitely Oppenheimer is very stoic, right? It's like, is this shallow of a man? Anyway, so that's one thing. But I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about the masculinity, because there is a reason why we talk about the Nolan bros, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There's something in Nolan's films that really reflects a certain sociology of contemporary masculinities. And I can't fully grasp what it is, but it's always been there since Memento and the Batman movies. There's something that gives young, especially, I guess, not only young, but like men in general, some sort of like, yeah, I see myself in this. I don't know, what do you guys make of that?
Well, I think it's the imagery of the cool man who is detached from his feelings. And even if in the majority of the movie, he's progressing towards accepting his pain, which I would say applies to Insomnia, Memento, Inception, Interstellar. For the majority of the film, he is a stoic and detached from it and unable to accept it. And that imagery is really cool. And oftentimes the character only reaches the point of greater vulnerability at the end. Oppenheimer, he never cracks. And it's only through suggestive cuts that we imagine the turmoil inside his mind, but we never see Cillian Murphy break. Even in Interstellar, we have that moment in the Tesseract where he's crying out for his daughter. And it is very moving. You know, when he cries in the truck as he's leaving to go to space, that's an incredibly moving shot. I agree with you, Dora, that I hope I'm surprised and that we get an emotional Odysseus Matt Damon.
Not seeing it from the trailer I saw.
I'm not either.
I'm not convinced, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I do think that there's something about like this upholding or applauding of the male desire to go off and do something for a greater good, but also recognizing the sacrifice of like not being with family, right? Like, I think that's such a masculine urge, right? Like the urge to like go do your job and like leave your family. Like it's
such a dumb urge.
and it's like, oh, feel bad for me because I have left my family. And that is the sacrifice that I make in order for the greater good. So that being relayed to people in many different ways through Nolan's filmography sort of build this image where we're reinforcing this men's place in society as this giver and the torment that comes with it or the glory that comes with it. And so much of Nolan's filmography is sort of just exploring this kind of character in many different degrees, in degrees where he is remorseful and degrees where he is not remorseful and he's just successful. And I think that is why to so many people, that sort of video message sequence is so emotionally powerful because you are recognizing that, okay, it is a valid sacrifice and he is feeling the weight of that sacrifice, but he still must move on. And that is his job as a man, as a great man.
I think the problem really is that like if you look at like the Nolan filmography, he never really investigates his character in more different ways. It's always the same, and he always wins. And I think that's the problem, because he always wins, there's never the thought of, what about if you fail? You give up your family and you also fail. Like that never really happens. And so like if you're a Nolan bro and you watch all of Nolan movies and you accept this idea that I just need to be so good at my job and I just cannot fail. But the Nolan characters never fail. And so if you fail, the movies don't instruct you as to how, as a man, you're supposed to do when you do fail. Because his men never fail. They might sacrifice a lot, but they never fail. So it makes it seem like sacrifice of the sort that they do, which is like to leave their family and to be away from their feelings. Is that supposed to be always morally good because you always succeed, because these movies always succeed? But then real life isn't like that. So then I think his body of work doesn't give that kind of nuance, right? If you're somebody that follows him. And also I would say that you can think of Cooper as a more emotional, masculine character compared to the rest of them. But then I think about it as well, like he's also so like not affected by everything that goes around. Bro was in a tesseract. Bro traveled through a wormhole, went through a black hole, and then comes back to like humanity and like is not changed at all. He's the same person. And I'm like, how disconnected are you to the reality in front of your face? You know, like you have done something truly incredible and you're the same guy? Like, what is that? And so I think it kind of like speaks to a sort of like fixity to the masculine person, right? That you have to be this way and like you don't change and like you can logic your way through everything. You can answer every question. You always have the answer and you can always solve your way out of every problem. But there's no capacity of like awe or like paradoxical and like being okay with contradiction or like things that just don't make sense. All of his men make sense of the world around them. But I think that's why Oppenheimer is maybe a bit more interesting, because here's a man that maybe doesn't know what the hell to do with his feelings, which is okay, but still not that far away from the other men, right? So I don't know.
He achieves his goal, but doesn't heal his sort of internal mishigas.
So yeah. I don't know. I do think that there's an argument that Nolan's not great for us as a whole from thinking about masculinity, because like if you think about like the masculinity crisis, this is kind of the same vein, right?
Like, I think the way you put it, I didn't think about it, but it's totally true. The guy, Cooper, goes through like a black hole and he's in outside time and space, and he comes back and there's no register of like meltdown. Like anyone will just have I know it's a film and we can, you know, it doesn't work that way. It's cinema. But the guy he will have a meltdown.
It shows the Nolans don't think about that. Right? They themselves, as writers, they don't realize that, wait, that's also pretty incredible. Like, why are we going this direction? Which is why, like, when I bring up Kubrick's like, bro, like, space baby, because I can't explain how crazy this is. Just space baby. Right? But then here, it's just like, also, how lucky are you that you get sucked back next to humanity? Like, there's no feeling of that awe. And I'm like,
well, it's by design because future humans made it that way.
Yeah.
So easy.
I also don't like that, like, he realizes that he's the guy shaking her hand. Because I think there's also like, it feeds into this great man thing again, which is like, not only is there like no higher power, it's like, we are the higher power, I am the higher power. And it's like, okay. And it's like, because this love thing's already there. Like, there's no access to something bigger than man, you know, like this specific man, you know, and
because it's not even religious or anything, you know. It could be. It's not aliens. It's not religious. It's not philosophical like Kubrick. It's also, I was thinking like that scene where he goes out of the black hole and his body reappears around Saturn. It's very similar. It's like a wink, like many references in the film to Kubrick and Contact as well. The film. In the Space Odyssey, like I remember those scenes where they're like so small. I forget his name now. The astronaut in outer space,
Dave Bowman.
You feel the immensity of space and this idea of a human body floating in nothing in Space Odyssey is extremely impactful. Here, I don't feel anything. Like it reappears, and it's like there's no sense of like abstraction, and my brain can compute what I'm watching, right? And that's really sad, and because we're also living in a phase of like fan service and stuff like that. That's like Easter eggs everywhere, and it's really poor. It's a poor landscape, I would say. But I like the way it does the references, like a wormhole popped up out of the blue next to Saturn, and that's like complete reference to Space Odyssey, right? Like the monolith shows up next to Jupiter, right? It's like literally that. And it's the same. Like suddenly there's wormhole, convenient, right when the planet is going into extinction, or also Contact, right, with Jodie Foster. Which is, again, a film that like a lot of people can't stomach it because it's the same thing with love. Like, oh, she travels across the galaxy only to find her father. And it's like, oh, such a disappointment. But it's very beautiful. It's like so tender. And it's the same, like, again, with love, you have to accept like emotions. Anyway, I do appreciate the way the film reminds me of other films that attempted similar scales and just kind of creates its own space in that history of cinema.
Yeah. Okay.
Have we exhausted?
This is pretty interesting. I mean, I feel like we didn't talk too much about filmmaking, which is...
I mean, the craft is always high level. I think with Nolan, I don't think it's 5. I think it's better than 5.
I like the production design a lot.
The production design is incredible. And you can really tell that he is using his miniatures because they feel like the spaceship feels real, especially when it comes into contact with the different items as they're going into the black hole at the end. Like, I feel like the tactility of the spaceship moving through space is something that is of note and was very different from, I guess, a lot of other sci-fi films that are set in space. And the distinct world building of the planets, like the wave thing, also very tactile. The ice, like you can really feel it. And Nolan puts a lot of effort into making sure that there's like a realism behind it. And I applaud him for that. Like, I think it makes the film a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Speaking of coming into contact with physical material, maybe funniest moment in the movie is when they're flying down to the ice planet and then they like bump into a cloud and like it cuts to the inside of the ship and Cooper just goes, frozen cloud. It's like, okay.
Just frozen cloud.
The most mundane thing ever. Like,
oh, we just chipped a cloud against our ship.
I think it's like the Dark Knight trilogy, this idea of like, oh, I'll make the most grounded version of a superhero movie ever. And I think it does the same here with space sci-fi. But again, that's also why I appreciate some of the scenes back on Earth and the cornfields, the first scene where they chase the drone.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's really well directed, really well thought out, and it's really good at like, it's a great director in that kind of style.
And actually, he actually planted that cornfield and I believe sold the corn for profit.
It's true. It's amazing.
They do crazy things, man, their production team.
I know.
I will say about production design, I don't know if people agree with me, but I don't really like robots. But I don't know why. I find them too goofy, but is it just me? It's not just me. I don't like the box thing. Like, I do. My friend was like, but do you want a humanoid thing? I was like, no, not really. But like, I don't really like this big rectangle that's like kind of floating around. It's like a 2001 kind of like reference, maybe. I don't know. But I just don't really like it. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like you were saying about this, what we were saying about masculine sci-fi or whatever, like Dune as well. Everything's like brutalist. Even the robot is just like a square. Even the robot is just like, no, it has to be a square. It can have no decorative elements.
It looks like an iron golem from Minecraft.
Oh yeah, it is like a Minecraft sprite.
Oh my God.
Like a Minecraft acid.
This Roblox ass robot.
That's all I got on Interstellar. I said everything I want to say.
Yeah, I think I'm good. Are you good, Dora? Do you have anything else that you want to talk about this movie?
No, I think it's fine. I think we went through everything.
Yeah.
The Nolan bros are going to come for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is going to have the worst review of your life. Deep cut.
We didn't trash it.
Yeah.
I'm still ultimately positive on this movie.
Yeah, I think we express a lot of people's feelings, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a great film at the end of the day. We all actually like it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do find that the things that we find trouble with are trade-offs that he makes for very specific goals, right?
Absolutely.
We know what they are, right? Like he's just like, I want to make an emotional, arousing story, and he does that. Some stuff has to go for you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a great movie. I mean, again, I've watched it way too many times for like supposedly not being a fan, but I keep on finding stuff there. And so that's the sign of a great movie, actually.
Yeah. Dora, is there anywhere that you want to point our listeners to online where they can find your writing or your filmmaking or follow your progress?
I will say, actually, because like I was saying, I'm a director. I also write regularly on film, art, and these kind of topics. I'm publishing a new article on actually very much on science fiction. So that's going to come out on eFlux Journal. That's E-Flux Journal. And you can read it online. It's free. So if people are interested and they want to read more on like history of science fiction, it's more on like literature, but maybe people find it interesting. That's a side of me as well.
We'll link that article in the show notes.
Yeah, great. Fantastic.
And yeah, please keep us updated with your feature film, and maybe hopefully we'll have you back on to talk about it when it comes out.
That would be great.
A new short is coming out next year and shooting the feature next year. So thank you so much for having me. And it was great to rewatch Interstellar.
Thank you for being on. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dora.
Thank you for listening to Deep Cut. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts to help others discover the show. A great way to support us is to leave a review or comment on episodes directly on Spotify. If you want to chat with us and other fans of Deep Cut, come join our Discord server where we talk about movies, TV, music, and share what we're up to. If you'd like to share a message with us or have business inquiries, you can drop us an email at hello@deepcutpod.com. We also have a Patreon if you'd like to support us with a monthly subscription. Thank you to all Patreon supporters, and a very special thanks to our Patreon Deep Cut Pick supporters, Leah Lai and Nicholas Gao. You can keep up with Deep Cut on Instagram, Letterboxd, and X at Deep Cut Pod. Click the link in our description or go to deepcutpod.com to find links to everything we've mentioned here. Deep Cut is hosted and produced by us, Wilson Lai, Benjamin Yap, and Eli Sands. Our cover art is designed by Justin Yam, and our theme song is composed by Eli Sands.
I'm Wilson.
I'm Ben.
I'm Eli.
I'm Isadora Neves Marques.
Take care, and we're looking forward to talking about more movies with you next time.
Or next space.
Oh. Next time or last time, because we're doing Tenet.
Next love.